Heroes and Legends, Dynasties, Voidariya. Returning from the void, this neutral force was like cancer to the universe. From their belief that there was a middle between good and evil, to the perfection and mythical perfection dragon that destroyed the universe, they were not missed. The perfection dragon was the deity that they worshipped. After the arrival of the Oricians to the universe, the true race of the Voidarians was at last revealed to be Orician. The New Age religion of Voidariya and their leader, Damien Rockefeller, have returned with some of his fellow followers to spread this teaching of Voidariya to all. This would put them in direct odds with the elders and the true faith. For their first intermission and arrival in dimensions and their acts of terror to begin the teaching, they needed followers. And so Damien Rockefeller from the secret base had hired his friend and follower Marlon Smart and Krita to go out to the Hathon galaxy to save Waltz, who was the Orician Hathon leader, and prevent the capture of her son, and not to allow her son to be in Catherine's dog. Waltz was in control of the Hathons, but the Hathon galaxy was liberated, and Taja Doctrine, who is a top healer, was off the Hathon galaxy and made contact with the low forces and their allies in order to save Hathon from the Rishian rule. Waltz managed to escape because her powerful son, Huron, pushed her away and allowed her to escape. She felt hopeless. The Oricians didn't want her. No other force wanted her. She was alone. She was prime pickings for the faith of Voidariya. And so she accepted the fate and asked him to save her son. Not wanting their new disciple to be heartbroken, the forces went out to save Heron, as the low forces were going to exchange him to the Oricians in exchange for their cooperation and that the Oricians would not attack them, as they had their own plans in place. And so the Voidarian forces had arrived. Waltz was instructing them, and Taja Doctrine was freaking out. She had thought she saw the last of her cruel tormentor, Waltz. She was stunned. Lorne Lowe, who was the co-leader of the Lowe, along with her young clumsy cousin Palmdale Lowe, were there as well. They had a great warrior named John Maid, who was a Kichuru at the time. Who is a Kichuru actually, who joined them, who was from the universe, was there to beat back these Voidarian invaders. Not understand what Voidariya was. Palmdale went to investigate herself what was going on. However, due to her clumsy behavior, she every time she tried to sneak around close to the camp, she always hit things and made loud noises, alerting the enemy to where her location was. This allowed Marlon Smart to actually figure out the pinpoint, a quick way to get to the enemy's main camp. And so Krita went through the canvas and sneaked by. As she is sneaking by the small passageway, she got glimpses, flashbacks of her past as a streetwalker, the alleyways that she would go to perform her acts just to survive and to bring bread and food to the table. She was proud when she saw Damien Rockefeller, who saved her from that life, and now she owed it to them to succeed in not only this, but all their battles. And so she moved swiftly and was able to beat back the low forces and defeat Lorne. With that, The Voidarians had the Capitol forces surrounded, and thus they had no choice but to retreat. Seeing that they did not want to be overrun as more low forces were coming, they got Yuan and fled. Fion's safe Walls was reunited with her son. Marlon Smart credited Krita for her hard work, and she smiled and nodded as they retreated and returned back to base. The Victorians moved on to another Orishian power, known as the Monroe Power. The Monroe Power was a new and upcoming Orishian force that was born during the time of the 100-year time lap. That were descendants of other Orishians that were not a part of the main Orishians but were in the universe because of the home was destroyed, that being of the dimensions. And so they had one soldier from Nakubi's old forces, and they thought they could extract that power and somehow unlock it to gain power for themselves. The Voidarians were very interested in them because they were an outlier just like them, and they wanted to increase their ranks and forces. However, the Monroe forces that were led by Emma Monroe, the leader, and her friends Shadel, Lendra, Royale, and Junet, who was a giant woman, were not too convinced about Voidarian's teachings. And so the Voidarian forces decided that it wasn't worth their trouble, and so they let them be to their devices. Elsewhere, sometime later, the two Damiens fight. Damien Rockefeller and the Holy Emperor, Damien II. Damien II had found out that the Voidarians had returned, and he found out who they were, and they were a threat. And so Damien himself went to face the other Damien in the universe. This universe wasn't big for two Damiens, and so the Holy Emperor used his more powerful might and his ability to control all weapons in all history and tombs, giant stone tablets that represent his old figure as he had grown taller over the years, and used them as weapons against the Voidarian, who tried desperately to fight him and use his many powers to try to control his body. But the holy power of the Holy Emperor was too much and overwhelmed the Voidarian, who tried to unlock his Voidarian powers but could not. But the Holy Spirit was with the Holy Emperor, Damien II, and Damien Rockefeller got a serious beating. And Damien Rockefeller was greatly injured, and thus he was sent to retreat back to where he came from.